One of the biggest mistakes that victims of narcissistic abuse make after a discard, let alone the relationship with a narcissist or someone who is extremely narcissistic, is they try to psych themselves out. They try to avoid. And the reason they try to avoid is because a lot of the time, victims of narc abuse are in denial. Now, the reason they're in denial is because you completely do not recognize the person that you were with at that precise moment. During a discard, it can become very brutal. It can become very harsh. It can become very cold and callous. You don't recognize the person you're with. So in this video, what I'm going to tell you is, as an example, I'm going to use my discard as an example as to what I had done wrong in the very beginning. And of course, the common mistake that other victims make during theirs. Now, everyone knows that being in a relationship with a narcissist or someone who's extremely narcissistic, remember guys, not everybody's a narcissist, but being in a relationship with someone of this caliber, you are faced with a lot of different obstacles. You're faced with insecurities. You're faced with jealousy. You're faced with accusations. You're faced with paranoia. You are pretty much under a damn microscope, and they are monitoring and watching every little thing that you do because they have trust issues. Let's face facts. Narcissists are contradictions. They're walking contradictions. It's do as I say, not as I do. So though the narcissist, the narcissistic person, can do as they please, you cannot. Now, being in a dynamic like that, most people would say, well, why didn't you just get up and leave? It's not so simple because everything is pretty much weaved in. Everything was pretty much intertwined. And before you know it, you're already so deep in with the narcissist, so deep in with the person that you don't realize what is going on around you. Now, one of the common mistakes after a discard, even though you went through all of that in your relationship, after a discard, the common mistake that victims make is they try to psych themselves out. They try to convince themselves that they are better off without the narcissist because the narc is doing that themselves. Now, as you can imagine, my discard came as a complete surprise to me. I knew he had some issues, but I didn't think it was anything that serious. But I had no idea, no thought in my mind that maybe this person is being entertained somewhere else. Maybe they're given attention from somewhere else, and this is why they're doing this. I didn't think that. I didn't stop to think that. I thought it was me. I thought I was doing something wrong. I mean, this person blamed me pretty much for a lot of what was going on in our relationship. But one of the mistakes that I made was after the discard, this person did not give a damn about how I felt. They seemed sympathetic in the beginning. They showed empathy. Hell, they cried tears. But at the end of the day, a couple of days later, they're online, they're posing, they're posting, they're talking, they're drinking, they're hanging out, they're traveling, they're doing all of this stuff as if I never existed. Now, while this is all going on, of course, I'm being reactive, and of course, I get the silent treatment, or I get the narcissistic rage. I get the anger, I get the callousness, the disgusting, demeaning disrespect. I got it all, okay? I got it all, guys. And yet I was still in that phase. I was, in the addiction stage. I could not understand. I was confused. I wasn't getting clarity. In the end, my pain turned to anger. My pain turned to, well, you know what? You're better off without me, then fuck it. I'm better off without you. And what I started to do was I started to psych myself out. I started to fake the funk. I started to take pictures. I was smiling in these pictures. I was acting as if my life was not crumbling around me, when the reality was that was the farthest from the truth. See, the thing about genuine people is that we feel. And no matter how much we try to fake the funk, no matter how much you try to fake a smile, if you are dealing with some painful stuff, it's still going to affect you. And there was one person who recognized that. No matter how many people were like, oh, your smile is beautiful and this and that, throwing comments and compliments. The one person who managed to look at my picture and say, I can see the pain in your eyes, was my mother. And that was one of the most heartbreaking things, because my own mother started to cry for me. When my mother started to cry for me, I started to cry. And that's when I realized that I needed to stop trying to avoid feeling what I'm feeling. I had to go through the pain. And as terrified as I was, I did not know where I was going to end up. I did not know how my life was going to be. I had to go through the pain. See, victims of narcissistic abuse see the narcissist as, well, you're doing better off without me. So now I got to show you that I could be better off without you. But what they fail to understand is that a narcissist at that point in time, they do not care. They have no empathy. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about how much they're hurting you. You can bawl out in front of them and it will not matter. In fact, it'll irritate them. They cannot handle emotions. They cannot handle pain from another person other than themselves. They are so self-absorbed, they are so self-seeking that no matter how much you've expressed to them, you're hurting me, you're hurting me, you're hurting me, it does not matter to them. They will continue to hurt you. And in that point in time, while they're sitting there posing for the world, going into a new relationship, flirting with other people, doing what it is that narcs do, they do not care what you are feeling, how you are feeling, because their ego is being stroked somewhere else. When a narcissist has their ego being stroked by other people, the person, the victim, is not a thought. You are not a factor. You are nothing to them. And it sounds so harsh saying it that way, and I could understand how it would piss some people off, but this is the reality of it. They are so embedded in what it is that is fulfilling their superficial supply, their superficial ego, their arrogance, that they don't care how you are feeling. They don't care what you are feeling because they are selfish at that point in time. Narcissists have always been selfish. They've been selfish in their own ways. This is why they have a hard time having sustainable commitments. This is why they are unable to sustain relationships. They are about themselves. They are about fulfilling their own needs, fulfilling their wants. Their wants come before yours. Their ideas and opinions come before yours. You are simply there to look pretty. You're simply there to make them look good. And when they feel that they are done with you, when they feel that, you know what, you're no longer doing it for me, you're no longer giving me the supply I want, you're no longer fulfilling me in the way that I see fit, time to let you go. That's just the way it is. But there's no need to be bitter about it either, because at the end of the day, with them discarding you, you got a few things out of it. One, you got to see them for who they truly are. Two, you got to experience something that actually really didn't break you. It can make you a lot stronger, but of course you have to go through the pain. Guys, I would not be where I am today if I decided to continue to avoid and continue to psych myself out. Victims who make this mistake of avoidance, of trying to convince themselves that they're okay, are the same type of people that end up back in the dynamic with either that particular narcissist or other narcissists. So just keep that in mind. If you have gone through a discard, well, if you're watching the video, clearly you have. But if you've gone through the discard, you have to go through the pain. You got to go through the motions. And as hard as it may be, as painful as it is, because I know the pain that you're going through, trust me, in the end, I can guarantee you this much. If you keep fighting and you keep going and you keep it moving with no contact, by the way, guys, if you continue to do it, the pain is going to run through you. And when it runs through you, it's going to run out of you, because at some point you're going to go from anger and pain to complete indifference. So guys, just keep this in mind. The discard is very, very painful. And I know it's scary, but you have to face it. You have to go through it. You have to deal with it. You have to deal with it mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You have to deal with it, because when you do, you've managed to overcome the obstacle. Avoiding it is pushing it aside, throwing it under the rug, all it's going to end up doing is it's going to end up creeping right back in. And you don't want to do that. That'll create self-sabotage. You'll sabotage your personal life. You'll sabotage relationships with other people. You'll sabotage everything, and you'll end up being alone. There's nothing wrong with being alone, but at the end, do you want to be alone because it's by choice, or would you rather be alone because nobody wants to deal with you because you're not dealing with your trauma? Keep that in mind, guys. It's my time.